The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
After days now of counting in the Iowa Democratic caucuses, a last-minute twist here to tell you about where Bernie Sanders has closed almost all of a stubborn gap he had been facing against Pete Buttigieg. We can show you right now with 97% of the precincts in the Buttigieg lead there statewide has shrunk to 0.2%, 26.2% to 26%. There is now a chance that Bernie Sanders will overtake Pete Buttigieg and win the Iowa caucuses. And right now, Buttigieg has 550 of them. Sanders has 546. That is 26.2% for Buttigieg and 26.0% for Bernie Sanders. That's the difference. 4 state delegate equivalents is the difference right now.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. I do not engage in conspiracy theories. This was clear as day to anyone paying attention from day one. The only question now is Iowa's Democratic Party just this malignantly incompetent? Or are they corrupt? Or some combination of the two? Bernie Sanders' team had this result because of their own internal polling that they took. They had workers on the ground at every polling location, at every caucus site, rather. And they had this. And this is why I believe they confidently sat back and did not make anything. They did not make a big scene out of any of this. It's been us, the Bernie supporters, who have been pounding the pavement on this. And they understood that they could trust us to do this. Because here's what I'm sorry. Yesterday, let me start here. A couple of people have been DMing me, messaging me, been like, Ben, do you really think this is a conspiracy? Ben, do you really believe all this stuff you're saying? Ben, you're going off the deep end. And I just want to say, if anything you have been able to trust me with, it is that I am measured. And when I go off, listen, it's the quiet person in the room. Not that I'm particularly quiet, but this is the example. It is the quiet person that when they go off, you damn well know there's something going on. I have waited. I have been patient. I've done everything I possibly could. And folks, what is going on in Iowa is to the level that I don't care if you want to dismiss it as incompetence. The level of incompetence is so gross that it is unacceptable. And catch this. The errors, if it's incompetence, all of the errors went to the benefit of Pete Buttigieg and to the detriment of both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Now, I'm not one. I don't particularly see a need right now. There's other podcasts that are going to attack Elizabeth Warren. You guys can go check them out, and I'm sure most of you listen to them anyway. That's cool. That's not my job. My job here is to point out it's to call out the bullshit. That should be the tagline of my show. Right? The Benjamin Dixon Show, where I call out the bullshit. And all of the errors yesterday, they tried it. I'm sorry. You cannot be this incompetent. How is it that yesterday, when they came out with more results, they put out results that showed all of a sudden Deval Patrick had, what was it, like 9%? 9% of the delegate total? Deval Patrick, who basically had nobody there on caucus night, caucusing for him. Michael Bennet had more people there than Deval Patrick. But somehow, a portion of Bernie Sanders' delegate totals went to Tom Steyer and Deval Patrick. This is documented. It was so embarrassing and so patently obvious that immediately after they released those results, the Iowa State Party, the Democratic Party, they had to come out and tweet, there are some minor errors that we're going to have to correct and push the new updates to you shortly. And then all of a sudden, those errors took delegates from Deval Patrick, who never earned any, and sent them back to where they belong, which is Bernie Sanders. Ladies and gentlemen, non-gender conforming individuals, non-binary individuals, listen. It is ridiculously obvious. And the only question is who all is involved. I don't care what you categorize it as. If it's incompetence, who all is involved in the incompetence? They need to go from top to bottom. But I'm sorry. You just cannot have. Okay. Now let's look at the results, right? Let's look at the results of this. This has given Pete Buttigieg 3 days, 3 entire days to run around the country claiming victory, media outlets calling him the winner. And that is the most powerful thing out of Iowa, not the total delegates. Because once we get to New Hampshire, baby, it's a wrap. Once we get to New Hampshire's and the votes count directly, it is a wrap. But the most powerful thing from this is the narrative, and they have done everything they possibly could to give it to Pete Buttigieg. Even if it's incompetence, you can fall back on incompetence and say, oh, I just didn't know. Do you know how many people get away with proverbial murder because they feign incompetence? It's so funny. Like whenever I'm in conversations like one-on-one with people and I'm debating people or whatever, once I nail them to the wall, all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I don't really understand how all this works. Oh, now you don't understand how now you're feigning incompetence. So it's so easy to feign incompetence and get away with all of this. How can you not believe it at this point? That's the question I have to turn. See, listen, I'm Johnny Come Lately. Like, people have been saying this for a long time. I know people in the audience have been yelling at me for a long time at the computer. They've just been kind enough to not cancel their Patreon subscription, and they've been kind enough to be patient and let it play itself out. And I guess they knew inevitably the stink would be too great for me to ignore. But here we are. And everything that we've said since I've come out full, support for Bernie Sanders is true. We said Bernie Sanders won. Let's just be patient. Let's see the results. We said that there can't be this level of incompetence. Why would it take 3 days? Riddle me this, Batman. Why would it take 3 days to do what used to take a few hours? And why is it that every single result that came out that was wrong was to the benefit of one person, Pete Buttigieg? You can't keep saying where there's smoke, there's fire, and not look at this and have the same level of analysis. It's just common sense, not even analysis. And here's the thing. This is to the detriment of everyone except for Pete Buttigieg. See, a lot of people are like, oh, this is just Bernie Sanders camp complaining. See, look, this is where we have things in common, Team Warren. Hell, even Team Biden. Everybody. There is something going on in the Democratic Party. Not really Team Biden, because Team Biden, it would be to the benefit of Team Biden if Team Biden stood a chance, right? But since Team Biden doesn't stand a chance, you all are now recipients. You're on the receiving end of whatever it is that's going on. So whereas you would be the villain in the story, you're now the victim in the story as well, because it is pushing the narrative to a person who didn't earn it. Now, you're not winners, right? Team Biden, you totally lost, but still, the way they're handling this should show everyone, even Klobuchar, everyone involved, that what they are doing is not just damaging to Bernie Sanders. It's damaging to Elizabeth Warren. It's damaging to Klobuchar and Joe Biden, all to the benefit of Mayor Pete. Now, if there's any place where we can have solidarity, it's got to be in the fact that none of us want that lying scumbag in office. No, I'm not going to say that. Yeah, I'm not going to say that. I'll leave that. But Mayor Pete, listen, if you support Mayor Pete, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't. I mean, maybe you just haven't been paying attention. That's probably it, because Mayor Pete is a lying scumbag. I'm sorry. That's the only way I can describe him. I'm a great judge of character. Here's the thing. Here's the problem with me. If you want to know where I make my mistakes, is that I don't trust my intuition immediately, right? My intuition is rarely wrong. What's wrong about me is that I don't trust it immediately until the alarms are so loud that you have to be like, okay, I know who this person is. And my intuition, my just looking at Mayor Pete, listening to him talk, listening to how he positions himself, looking at how opportunistic he is, how he would say one thing and then turn on a dime because opportunity tells him he needs to say something else. I know a lying scumbag when I see one, and Mayor Pete is a lying scumbag. And I'm sorry, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that because if I'm a person of integrity, and I've gone up and I've come down based on my integrity. I've gotten moderate successes, but great failures because of my integrity. If I'm a person who holds the line and will lose everything because of my principles, how do you think I'm going to support someone who would weasel his way to the top? It's incomprehensible. It's impossible. And I'm sorry, if you look at Peter and you think that he's a man of integrity when his track record says everything else but that. And most importantly, how he responded to this first caucus in Iowa shows you that he is an opportunistic, lying scumbag. And this is affecting every single one of us who support any other candidate. I don't know why you would support Amy Klobuchar. But if you support Amy Klobuchar, what's happening with the Democratic Party and Mayor Pete is damaging your support for damaging your candidate. Joe Biden, this is hurting his campaign. Elizabeth Warren, it's hurting her campaign. All because, honestly, they're doing whatever they can to stop Bernie Sanders. And this is where we all can have some solidarity, because it's not just Bernie Sanders who's getting screwed by the Democratic Party in this exchange. It is everybody who's not Mayor Pete. Because if it's incompetence, if you don't think it's malicious or if corruption and it's incompetence, the incompetence has benefited only one person and it has damaged everyone else in Iowa. And that person who's been the recipient of this incompetence, or the beneficiary of the incompetence, is Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Here we go. It's that time of the show again, ladies and gentlemen. I think everybody likes this as much as I do because this is a bop. Come on. Bop your head. Very special thank you to Karen Fetty for increasing your pledge. Very special welcome. Can I just say a doubly special welcome to Rodrigo A. for becoming a patron? I see you, Rodrigo. Very special thank you to Benjamin B. also. Wow, brother. Thank you for becoming a patron. Very special thank you to Orpheus 311. Thank you for becoming a patron. To Robert Kaiser, thank you so much for becoming a patron. I really mean that. Basil, thank you for becoming a patron. Sam Snap, thank you for becoming a patron. Catherine Stokes, thank you for becoming a patron. Dominique Edwards, thank you so much for becoming a patron. I love this name, Militant Twinkie X, or Militant Twinkie 10, depending on how you want the X to be read. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. Very special thank you to Max Moen Johnson. Thank you for becoming a patron. Very special thank you to Garrick Starts. Whew. Thank you for becoming a patron. Very special thank you to Schuler Bone. Thank you for becoming a patron. And last but not least, very special thank you to William Stapleton for becoming a patron. I'm having to extend the patron party music every single day because you all are simply outstanding. Outstanding. The support for the show is growing, and I have to admit, you're making me believe in this show even more. I honestly, this is one of my downfalls, right? I can tell you all of my weaknesses. I am idealistic and optimistic to a fault. I do not know how to not be optimistic, and sometimes it gets me in a little trouble, you know. Sometimes I chase dreams that I probably should have stayed in that internship at NASA that I had in college. But you all have made me believe in this show even more because of your overwhelming support. And every time I get a notification, let me tell you something. Every time I get a notification of a new patron, I have a patron party at my house or wherever I am. I'll text my wife like, babe, we got another one. So thank you so much. You too can become a part of this patron family by going to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and becoming a patron today. I'm opening up the Discord to everybody, whether you're a patron or not. I want you to come to the Discord and let's build this community because there's strength in this community. And I'm telling you, if there's anything else that you can trust, if you can't trust nothing else, if you can't trust anything else, but you get it. You can trust that every dollar you put into this show, every minute that you spend supporting the show, whether it's financially or not, every time you retweet me, every time you share an article, every time you share a video that I've created, you can guarantee that I am fighting on behalf of our beliefs and not money. And I say that not in the sense of big corporate donors and all that, small donors. No. I say that in terms of my personal integrity and why I do what I do. I have fallen on my sword and lost so much money because of my integrity, because of my principles. And that way, you can trust that whatever you do to support this community, and I say this in context of you coming to the Discord, because you can trust that if you spend time in our community, that what we're doing in this circle is we're fighting on behalf of the people. You're not going to be elevating me for my ego. You might be in my community, but you're working and you're in my community because you know I'm fighting on behalf of you. Sorry, don't mean to get a little preachy and moralizing, all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted you to know that every person that is a supporter financially, or even if you're just listening to the podcast, you are investing in good ground. Okay, yesterday I told you, and I've been saying this for I've talked about the asymmetrical fight that we are in with the Republican Party for some time. It is very significant in that it has pushed this country so far to the right on economic policies, on social policies, right? Because you have a Republican Party who's fighting dirty, and they are willing not only to scorch the earth, but they will burn it all down for a simple win. They lie. They cheat. They break every rule, every norm, and every institution in order to get their agenda accomplished. They are not wed to any ideology because they have shown that they will ignore their ideology if it puts them in danger of ever having to work with the Democrats. They are a hardline party. The best example would be Obamacare. That's the penultimate example of them betraying their own ideology because Obamacare is a conservative piece of legislation. I've established that many times on this show. The most recent example of it I gave you yesterday. I told you yesterday that they would do more to hold Nancy Pelosi accountable for tearing up that State of the Union address than they would hold Donald Trump accountable for his bribery, for his obstruction of justice, for his incessant lying. Right? Well, okay. Don't say I didn't tell you so. Matt Gaetz, who is the congressperson from the 1st District of Florida, Republican, he has called for an ethics investigation into Nancy Pelosi for tearing up the State of the Union address by Donald Trump. He sent this out yesterday. He said, quote, "I'm filing an ethics complaint against Speaker Pelosi for destroying Donald Trump's State of the Union speech. Her conduct was beneath the dignity of the House and a potential violation of laws, citing U.S. Code 18 U.S.C. 2071. And then he said this, ladies and gentlemen, folks. He said, "No one is above the law. She must be held accountable." My brothers and my sisters, I feel like we need to come to Jesus moment. Because this is the height. This is the quintessential example of what we're fighting against. And this isn't to the defense of the Democratic Party. This is actually why the Democratic Party is feckless. And they're incompetent to handle this level of scorched earth fighting. Because if at any moment you think that the way to respond to this is by trying to uphold the dignity of your office and your position and not and trying to be civil and not even acknowledging this because, I'm not going to dignify that with a response. That is the exact way that they keep getting away with this asymmetrical warfare that they have been waging against the Democrats and against this country for 40 years. They are trying to hold her accountable. I told you a couple of weeks ago, I said the next Democratic president that gets into office, if they so much as sneeze without covering their face, the Republicans are going to try to impeach him. Not ever out of retribution, not out of revenge. They don't really personally care about Donald Trump, but out of the opportunity to weaken the Democratic Party and weaken their agenda, which here's the kicker. The Democratic Party is everything that the Republicans of 20, 30, 40 years ago could ever dream of. The Democratic Party right now is trying to give the Republican Party everything they want. All they want more than anything else is just for them to work with us. Democrats are sitting on the sideline like, why won't you guys just have some bipartisanship with us? And so the Democratic Party, no matter what they do, it will never be enough for these Republicans. The Republicans will not be satisfied until they have a full-blown dictatorship theocracy. They will not be satisfied until every penny of this country that's raised in tax dollars goes to their preferred private contractor. They will not be satisfied until every public school has been converted into a private endeavor. They will not be satisfied until there is nothing that we can say with regard to justice and that they are free to do and get away with anything they want to get away with. And they have started that process in earnest by saying there's nothing that Donald J. Trump can do that will ever rise to the level of accountability, of needing to be held accountable. But if you so much as sneeze or tear up the State of the Union address from this president, we've got to hold you accountable. Let me tell you something. You cannot be reasonable with unreasonable people. You must return fire with fire. If they're willing to scorch the earth, we have to be willing to scorch it. It doesn't mean that we are going to scorch the earth, ladies and gentlemen. This is a game of brinksmanship. And sometimes in a game of brinksmanship, everybody loses. I understand that. But you cannot put yourself in a position where you're constantly negotiating with terrorists. This is why the United States has generally has a principle of not negotiating with terrorists, because the logic is there. If you begin negotiating with people who can never be satisfied, you will always be in the position of appeasement, and you will always be in a position of ceding territory to your political rivals. And in this case, we have done that with the Democratic Party for 40 years. Democrats have been capitulating, have been triangulating, have been doing everything they possibly can to work with Republicans because all they want is some bipartisanship. And the Republican Party has routinely spit in the face of the Democrats as well as in the face of America. And this trying to hold Nancy up. You have the unmitigated gall to hold Nancy Pelosi accountable for ripping up a speech when you won't hold the president of the United States accountable for seeking quid pro quo from a foreign nation to dig up dirt on his political rival, a case that has been proven without a shadow of a doubt. And the only reason he was not found guilty is because the Republican Party and the Senate made sure of it. They had no intention of ever finding him guilty. And as damning as this should be for the Republican Party, I'm telling you, the Democratic Party as it is right now is not capable of handling this type of opposition because they are afraid of brinksmanship. They are afraid of calling the bluff. They are afraid of being willing to burn it all down because Republicans have shown that you cannot win. I cannot stress this enough, ladies and gentlemen. Look, when somebody is holding a gun to your head, you don't survive it by giving them everything that they want. because they're going to always ask for more, and eventually they're going to pull the trigger. Okay? So instead of doing that, you call their bluff. You stare them in the face and you return fire with fire. You have to. You absolutely have to. And so too, just like the Republican Party is holding the Democratic Party hostage, the Democratic Party is trying to hold the Democratic base, the progressives, the left. They're trying to hold us hostage by saying that's a whole nother segment. That's an entirely new segment. A segment that I will put in the Patron show that continues after the end music. So I have a whole lot more to cover. I want to get in one more segment before the end of this show, but I will pick up this question about the Democratic Party and their machinations to try to suppress the Bernie crowd, the revolution. I'll talk about that in the bonus show that you can get access to at www.patreon.com/the BPD show. We'll be right back. I like that track. All right, welcome back. Last but not least, there's a whole lot more coming up after the closing music. But I've just got to talk about this Jason Johnson guy from MSNBC, Professor Jason Johnson. He is a journalism professor at Morgan State University. Great school. Love Morgan State. Contributor to MSNBC and The Root. But I got to call him out one more again. This is what he said while I was recording the show. I said, you know what? I have to talk about this right now. He said, quote, as an oligarch, let's start again. Let's try this again. Quote, an oligarch is an extremely wealthy person who uses that money to influence government and policy. How rich you are or how you spend the money is immaterial. He said that doesn't mean a millionaire and billionaire are the same thing. But if we're having an academic discussion of the term, and my initial point was about messaging, then yes, Sanders like Papa John or Bill Gates or George Soros would qualify. Let's continue reading. He said the fact that Sanders has spent his life fighting for economic equality does not mean he's not part of the 1%. When he became a millionaire or how is not relevant to the definition of an oligarch. I got to jump in this Twitter conversation, so I'm going to wrap this show up really quick because this is bullshit. If you finish college, you're college graduate, whether it took you 4 years or 12, whether it's Harvard community or a community college, if we're talking academic definitions, I can't. Jason, what is wrong with you, bro? No, seriously. You're trying to save face because you, like a jackass, went off on Nina Turner calling Michael Bloomberg, who is using his personal money to influence politics. And you didn't like that because of the negative connotations to the word that you all have imbued. Well, actually, being an oligarch is negative. I don't care who says it. But what you at MSNBC have tried to do is define that as something that is a terrifying concept because it's a Russian oligarch. And then Nina Turner, like the rest of us, are like, well, Michael Bloomberg is definitely a damn oligarch. He is using his billions to make sure that his other billions are safe from us peasants. And you're trying to say that like Michael Bloomberg, who is worth 30,000 times more than Bernie Sanders' measly $2 million, you're trying to say Bernie Sanders, because he's worth $2 million, all of a sudden he's an oligarch when he does not use his own personal wealth? His own personal wealth, which is barely wealthy. Come on, Jason, let's be real. You may not be worth $2 million, but you're definitely in the price bracket, right? That tells you that even if you had $2 million, you're not really rich in this country. Let's just be real. If you're, and I'm going to be real with you, man, if you're not breaking at least $500,000 a year, then you don't really know what the hell you're doing, bruh. Right? All those things that you listed as a professor, MSNBC contributor, you work with The Root, you better be making about $500,000 a year. And even at $500,000 a year, which is great, I would love to be able to make that much money, but you understand at this juncture that if you own a home and you own a nice car, then you definitely are not an oligarch. You don't have enough money to influence politics with your personal wealth. And you know, $500,000 a year ain't about nothing compared to $60 billion. You can't use your personal wealth, and neither can Bernie Sanders use his personal wealth. which is tied up in real estate, so he's really not even liquid. Bernie Sanders probably has some bills that are outstanding. All this money that he's raising, none of that money goes to him. Not me, us. All that money is going to his contractors and his staff. And you're going to make this argument that because he's a quote unquote millionaire, that he is the same as Bloomberg? And you're doing this to save face because you made yourself look like an ass on national television and everybody looked at you and like, are you serious? Even Chris Matthews was like, are we arguing about a term here, Jason? Are we arguing? Come on. Bruh, let me tell you, sometimes you take an L and you just got to take a step back and say, you know what? I got that one wrong. I'm going to bow gracefully. But you are doubling down on the stupid, my dude. And I generally like you. So stop making an ass out of yourself and just let this one go. That's my music. The rest of the show is coming up after the music. Go to patreon.com/the BPD show because I'm not an oligarch and I need your help.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.